Hello, it's Bumper here. Hope you're all keeping well. Back with a new video today. And today we're going to be talking about quite possibly my favourite subgenre of horror at the moment, elevated horror. Alright, first of all what is elevated horror? Okay, so I don't particularly like the term elevated, but you know, you can't knock people for using it because horror is such a big umbrella. There are loads of subgenres. So, you know, you're only calling it elevated rather than using a term like slow burn. So, you know, as far as the word elevated goes, doesn't really bother me, but I could take it or leave it. I just call them horror films, slow burn, whatever. So what is an elevated horror? So an elevated horror is a movie that doesn't rely on the usual jump scares, gore fest, heavy supernatural, haunted house type movies. You know, it relies more on an impending sense of dread, a really strong, creepy atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, a lot of them do have supernatural elements, but a lot of them are mixed in with mental health. So by the end of the film, you're still none the wiser as to whether there was something otherworldly going on or whether it was just, you know, the fractured psyche of the person you're watching in the movie. Okay, so I love elevated horror. It took a while to grow on me. But I think that's probably because I started with the wrong films. I mean, The Witch is one of the more popular ones. Midsommar, Hereditary. I know those films are not for everyone. I mean, Hereditary is fantastic. I mean, just what a film. But The Witch, I appreciate, can be a little bit too atmospheric and moody with not much going on for a lot of people. But it has grown on me. I love that film there as well. But sometimes I think maybe you need to start with a movie that's a bit more accessible, got a bit more going on, so you can slowly build up to the super slow burners or the super elevated horrors. Alright, so like I was saying, I love elevated horror. It's really grown on me. I think it's a really good way of creeping someone out. You know, I think it's a lot more scarier when you're getting these realistic portrayals of these people who are just nuts in the head, you know, rather than just some monster that you know once you turn the film off, you know, doesn't exist. But these people with these mental health problems, they are real. It's a real situation. So, okay then, I won't waffle on too much more about it. I'm going to jump straight into it. The first movie in my collection that I class as elevated horror, Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Okay, lovely slipcover on this one, just to say. But okay, so this is elevated horror. A lot of people didn't like it, and their main gripe with it was that it had no plot. I totally disagree, alright? This movie has got plot. It might not be the most complex plot in the world, but it's quite simply about this lady, Jennifer Lawrence's character. She's married to Javier Bardem's character. You know, they live in a nice, tranquil, peaceful setting in a lovely big house. And, you know, slowly these people start coming. It's all a bit weird. Like a guy knocks the door and says he's lost, can he use the phone? And, you know, as they slowly get to know him, he starts saying how he's sleeping in a hotel and they become friendly with him and they invite him to stay in the house. Well, Javier Bardem does. Jennifer Lawrence isn't so keen on it. And then his sons turn up, his wife turns up. It's weird, but there is a plot there. Anyway, for the first hour, there's not a lot going on really apart from this sort of setup where you see Jennifer Lawrence just slowly getting more... you know, what's the word I'm looking for? She's getting more irritated with the way this is going and more frustrated that she hasn't just got a lovely home to herself. And then, like all good elevated horrors, the last half hour of this movie is just insane. There's a scene in this. I don't want to spoil it, but I think this video is going to contain mild spoilers, so switch off if you don't want to know or fast forward. But there's a scene in this at the end where they're all, there's a crowd of people in the house, and it involves a newborn baby and Jennifer Lawrence like basically just getting the shit kicked out of her. There's one scene where she takes a boot to the jaw and it's just horrific. It'll stay in my mind for a lot longer than, you know, Freddy Krueger tearing someone apart. So yeah, so this is really good. Darren Aronofsky, I really enjoy this film. Definitely falls under elevated horror. Mother. Alright, this is one of the more popular ones on the list, but I still know that not everybody's seen it. This is an amazing second sight, release 4K. This is The Babadook. Okay, so The Babadook is an Australian movie directed by Jennifer Kent, who went on to do The Nightingale, which probably doesn't fall under elevated horror, but is a good movie nonetheless. Okay, so this is elevated horror in the sense that it deals with grief, loss, the mental impact it has on you when you lose a loved one and you're left to pick up the pieces. You know, the woman's husband's died in a car crash. She's got to raise her child on her own. And yeah, the problem with this film is when it first starts, for the first half hour, the son is really annoying. You know, don't want to be rude to him, I think it's probably testament to his acting, but he's really annoying. I had to turn it off once or twice when I first started watching it because I could not get into it. And when I got this 4K, I thought, no matter how annoying this kid gets, I'm going to stick with it. And boy, am I glad I did. It all explains itself in the end, why he's the way he is, and you do feel sympathy for him then. But, you know, this is elevated horror in his, you know, at his best. The last half hour, again, like all of them, this one does deviate into supernatural, but whether you believe in the supernatural elements or whether it's all in the head, I think, you know, the supernatural elements in this are used as a metaphor for the trauma that the mother and the child are suffering rather than actually existing. But yeah, so this is a really good movie, but you've got to stick with it. Get through the first half hour and you will really enjoy it. The Babadook. I think this one's quite a popular one as well. It's had a bit of a resurgence since this Second Sight release. This is Session 9. Okay, so what I forgot to say at the start of this movie is, what I forgot to say at the start of this video is that the reason I love elevated horror so much is that I like an experience where I watch a movie, it finishes, and I enjoyed it, but I haven't got no closure. You know, it's still whirling around in my head as to what could have happened. I'm replaying it and replaying it. So what I like to do is watch a movie like this, then I type into Google, you know, Session 9 fan theories, ending explained. Then I read all these different fan theories, I collate all the information, and then I jump back into the movie again, fully armed with the new clues, and watch it all unfold. And this one blew my mind. When you read about it and you piece all the pieces together, well, it's still only an opinion of mine because, you know, it's not that linear, but it does all make sense when you read into it. So this is about a couple of guys who go to remove asbestos from an old psych hospital. One of the guys here stumbles across these old tapes of these recordings. And yeah, it's just, it goes from there. Like I said, this is another psychological movie rather than jump scares and gore. And when it all unfolds at the end, again, it's jaw-dropping. You know, it's just my favourite kind of experience, this sort of movie. So yeah, check this one out if you can. Session 9. This is a fantastic movie from one of my favourite directors, Ty West. This is House of the Devil. Okay, so this movie is set in the 80s. The attention to detail is absolutely through the roof. From the Pepsi polystyrene cups they use to the clothes they wear, this is 80s. Ty West has left no stone unturned in the aesthetic of this film. And it's a really good film. And what's the guy's name in it? I should know. Noonan, isn't it? Tom Noonan, is it? I better just check quickly. I wouldn't want to give any wrong information. Yeah, so Tom Noonan's in it, famous actor. The girl in it, I've seen in a few films. It's Jocelyn Donohoe, or Donohoe, or whatever you say it. So yeah, House of the Devil. This is about a girl who's struggling to pay her course fees, tuition fees. So she takes a job babysitting that pays well, and she thinks she's babysitting a kid. And, you know, it slowly unfolds. I don't want to go into spoiler territory with this one, but it deals with sort of, well, obviously devil worshipping, black magic, whatever. It's got Suspiria vibes basically. So if you've never seen this film, you've got to check it out. House of the Devil. Okay, another Second Sight release. Second Sight, fair play, have been smashing it with elevated horror lately and giving it a new lease of life, some of these films that have been lost over time. So this one is Lake Mungo. Okay, so again, this is another film that when it finishes, you don't really know if there was anything supernatural going on or what. It does leave you a little bit confused, but there is closure there to a certain extent, okay? So this film is done in a mockumentary style, and it's about a girl who goes missing at Lake Mungo, and then you're following the family, trying to piece it all together. You know, they're looking at her phone and her social media and whatever, like, and they're just trying to find out what happened to her. It's got a few twists and turns in it. There's a brother in it who fabricates some of the information and whatever, so you never quite know if you're getting the truth or not from the family. And then there's a scene at the end, or towards the end, that again just lingers in your brain for a long time afterwards. It's just a messed up image, and yeah, it'll just always stick with me. What I like about this film is a lot of horror films these days, they depend on a lot of phonetic editing and cutting. You know, like when you see Michael Myers stab someone in Halloween, it's like really fast flashing, you know, and before you have a chance to take it all in, it's gone. This movie is the opposite. You have these really slow, lingering zoom shots on these photos and things. It goes zoom into a photo to a ghostly image. You can't see it at first, then you see it start to appear, and oh yeah, shit your pants territory for me, that is. I'd much rather that slow style and you know, phonetic editing, choppy scene sort of thing. So yeah, this is really worth checking out. Australian movie, Lake Mungo. Alright then, one of the newer movies on this list, Saintboard. This has been talked about quite a lot in the community. I won't waste a lot of time on it. Majority of people have seen it, but I had to have it in the list because, quite frankly, it is one of the best elevated horror movies I've ever seen. So it's A24, like a lot of them. Directed by Rose Glass, debut. Stars Morfydd Clark, who's a Welsh actress. It does have some Welsh, what's the word I'm looking for? Some Welsh like vibes in it, you know, when she's speaking with the god and he's talking to her in Welsh and stuff. So happy to have some sort of elements from my home country. It's about a girl basically who has a traumatic incident when she's working as a nurse. So she goes to find God and she thinks she's some sort of like disciple, messenger of God. And she starts doing these weird things based on this voice she heard. And yeah, the end scene in this, like all of them, good elevated horrors always have good final moments and linger on for a long time. That's the point. You have an hour and 20 of exposition or just nothing really much happening and then boom, you know, it hits you like a train. So yeah, Saintboard. Well, the reason it hits you like a train because it should be building up the tension as it goes. It should ratchet up till you're ready to pop and then boom. And that's what this movie does, okay? So yeah, Saintboard, wicked film. Now, I very much doubt any of you have heard of this film or seen it, so this is one to add to your list. You know, this is part of the reason why I do these videos. This is called In Fear. Okay, now I was lucky enough to see this movie. It's got a lovely slip one. It was cheap on Amazon as well, like £3. I was lucky to see this movie at a film festival 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I'd never really seen it since. It's never been on telly or on Sky or anything. But then I seen it on Amazon when I was searching a couple of months ago. I thought, oh yeah, I'm getting that. Brings back good memories. So this is about a boy and a girl. They're driving in Ireland. And they're going to a music festival, and because the boy fancies the girl and he wants to sort of spend as much time with her as he can, they sort of leave a day early and he's booked them this hotel for them to stay in the night before. And anyway, they drive to this hotel through these country lanes and they just get completely lost, and it ends up just being like a labyrinth of dark farm lanes, and they're just going round in circles, and then they bump into this weird character who seems to be stalking them. You never quite know what his intentions are, and then yeah, just the tension ratchets, and then you get to the end and it's just, you know, oh my god. No ghosts in this, nothing supernatural, you know, this is just the evil that man do, and it's awesome. In Fear, check it out. Another movie you may not have heard too much of, but there is an American remake, which is pretty good as well, but I've only got the original. So this is We Are What We Are. This is a Mexican cannibal movie, okay? This is about a family of cannibals whose father dies. Now, the father was obviously the main man in the family. He was the one who was going out kidnapping people, killing them, so the children had something to eat. And then when the dad dies, it's up to the kids to fend for themselves. Now, this is not gross out, although there is some gore in it. You know, this is not Hannibal Lecter. This is not, you know, they don't want to be cannibals, you know, they don't want to be doing what they're doing, but they've just got to out of needs must. And yeah, it's got real emotional impact, this movie has. Like I said, the American remake's good. It's got, the American remake's got, what's the name in it? I can't think what her name is, but it's worth checking out the American version, same title. But if you can, get the Mexican version because, yeah, it's really good. We Are What We Are. Another one you may not have heard of, you know, I try to keep the lesser known ones towards the end, really, to sort of, you know, give you something to build up to. So this is Pie Wacket. So this is a lovely German media book that I got. I got to be careful opening it because all the bits are falling because it's got a poster in the booklet's stuck in. The poster's wicked. Okay, so yeah, Pie Wacket. This is about a young girl who has an argument with her mum or is not getting on with her mum, and she ends up doing this spell. And you know, you don't really know if it's worked or not, and then things slowly start getting out of hand. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I can't remember a lot, but I always remember the end and what happens at the end, which is pretty messed up. So yeah, if you've never seen this film, check it out. It's called Pie Wacket, and I think you probably will enjoy it if you like slow burns. It's probably done in the same vein as maybe, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Honeymoon, or Goodnight Mummy, if you've ever seen that film. It kind of works like that, or The Lodge maybe, but yeah, Pie Wacket, great film. Okay, so now we're down to the last two, and these are absolute bangers. These are on my recommendation list every single time. Alright, so the first one is Starry Eyes. I got this from Amazon Italy, absolutely wicked. Side-loading slip, two different reversible cover art, two different, three different covers when you include the box. Really well put together. Now this movie is amazing. This is the ultimate example of a slow burn because it just builds and builds the story. You're not sure what's going on. This girl here, she's an aspiring actress. She's going to get these casting calls. She's not getting any work. And then she gets offered a role in a movie, but only if she, does sexual favours to the producer or the director. I can't remember. I think it's the producer. Obviously, she refuses at first, and then as her life slowly, not spirals out of control, but, she's skint. She needs to work. And, she goes back to this guy and, pleases him in a way. And I don't know why it happens really, but she just ends up being cursed down. I don't know if she sold her soul to the devil. It doesn't fully explain itself, but she goes from this nice girl next door type. I mean, the last 20 minutes, the transformation is unbelievable. You've got to see it. There's a death scene in this with a weights dumbbell, just getting someone's head smashed in, and it is amazing. All right, you've got to watch it. And yeah, and by the end, this girl, she is just unrecognisable. She's turned into this, I don't really know what it is, but you really need to check this one out. Like I said, this is a prime example of elevated horror. For the first hour, you won't know where it's going. You might find yourself a little bit bored. Then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God. Starry Eyes. Now, number one on this list. Hated this movie the first time I seen it. But it had so many rave reviews. I was thinking, how can these millions of horror fans be wrong? I'm on the same wavelength as them all. And I bought it on physical, watched it again, and yeah, it was amazing. I'd done exactly what I'd done with a lot of other these films. Watched it, couldn't quite get my head around the whole thing, read a load of fan theories, went back in again, and was blown away. So this movie is February. Now this movie has two titles. It's known as The Black Coat's Daughter in most countries. So if you do want to watch this film based on my recommendation, you probably will be safer searching The Black Coat's Daughter. But I could only find it on Blu-ray in Italy, and it's called February in some European countries. But it's exactly the same film, so there's no drama really. So this is February. This stars Emma Roberts, from Scream 4 and American Horror Story. Very slow burn, set in this real creepy school during a break. All the kids have gone home, except for these two girls, okay? You've got, what's her name now? She's a popular actress, young actress. Let's get her name. Kernan Shipka. I think she went on to do, not Clarissa, who's the teenage witch, Sabrina. I think she was Sabrina in the Sabrina reboot. Okay, so two students are stuck at the school because the one is there because she's pregnant and she don't want her parents to know, so she's given them wrong dates, so they're not there to pick her up. And the other girl just doesn't know where her parents are. She's had a premonition that they've been in a car accident, but it's never actually confirmed, until later in the film when it all unfolds. So yeah, it's really creepy, really atmospheric. There's a brooding sense of terror right through this film. It does have some gore. In it, there's some brutal stabbings towards the end. So for the gore hounds, you will be satisfied by the time you get to the end of this film. But, it's really not what the movie is about. This is the thing with elevated horror. It will have supernatural elements, or it will have gore, but it's there to solely push the narrative. It's not there because it's a horror film and it has to have it, like a slasher or something like that. So yeah, so this one is really good. You really need to check this movie out, but don't be surprised if you don't get it the first time, because it jumps between two timelines and it's not wholly clear. I would explain it to you, but I would rather you go into it, and then if you've got any questions, you can just message me, because I think I've got my head around it now. So anyway, this is number one on Bumper's elevated horror list. The rest were in no order, but this is the one you need to watch if you want to get into the genre. February, aka The Black Coat's Daughter. Alright then, I've been Bumper. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, I got a big passion for elevated horror. I could have done 20 titles. I dug 20 titles out of my collection, but I didn't want the video to drag on. So I made you a part 2 of this. Okay, so yeah, that's about it then. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace out, Bumper.